All right, everyone. I am here with Katherine Shelton, and boy, does she have a story to tell us today. This all goes into my podcast episode about MAGA, not just the people of the country, but the law enforcement, our government officials, and how they've kind of embraced that MAGA cult and the rhetoric that really seems to go with it. So today, Catherine, I know you have an amazing story for us. I'm happy to have you on. I'm not happy for the reason we're talking, but I'm glad to meet you. And um, yeah, I think first, let my followers and viewers know, because I think this is a really important aspect of it, where you live, where this is happening.
We live in Shelby County, Alabama. Deep red state, deep red area. Um, I grew up here. I've lived here my whole life, and I've never seen it be quite so red as it is right now.
Really? So it's more emboldened, do you think, now than in 2016?
Oh, absolutely. It has,
Yeah.
and people are really, really loud and proud about what side they are for, and as long as they want to share their feelings about it and be cordial, that's okay. But people in our area weren't being cordial anymore.
And so let's talk about your dad, Jerry Lee Clark. Did I get that correct?
Yep, my dad is Jerry Lee Clark of Alabama. He is 66 years old. Um, he moved here in the 1980s to be with my mom. He is a small business owner. He paints houses for a living. He's a granddad
Mhm.
and has always been a pillar in the community and a Boy Scout leader and really, really good guy all around. Fun to talk to. He loves history. He collects antiques. Um, so really cool dude, actually.
And that history part is real important because I think people who actually care about our history and acknowledge our history seem to have your dad's, way of thinking because we know we've been here before, we've seen this.
Yeah, they've seen it play out before and they know exactly what's happened.
Yeah.
My dad knows a lot about history. Owning an antique store, you kind of have to know a lot of that. And he's always taught us, to think for ourselves and always, shared information of both sides and told us that it was up to us to come up with our own conclusion of it,
I love
that
it.
he would provide the information that we needed to find out how we felt on our own. So
That's how I raise my children. I love that.
it's important when you indoctrinate a child and you only put one-sided information into them, they are lacking.
Yeah.
Honestly, they just follow in your footsteps, not knowing what else is out there. I really appreciate the fact that my parents, not only with politics, but like religion and stuff. I actually grew up Mormon, but we were allowed to go to other church with friends and kind of find out our way and what we wanted and what our path was going to be.
I love
So
that.
he was like the politics.
That's amazing because that's, a lot of what racism and stereotyping is based on is because parents pass those on to their children instead of letting their children look outside their Bible, their bubble, their community, and really experience other people and how they live and their cultures. And when that stops, and I think that's a big part of the MAGA movement, it became an us versus them, and anyone who's them, which is us, we're a target. And
Yeah, absolutely.
and for to pass that on to your children, yeah, I think that's so sad. So I love that about your dad.
Me too. My dad's a good guy. He really, really worked really hard to take care of us
And so what
and
brought on
provide for us.
wrath of, like, the neighbors and the MAGA? Like, what happened with him living in that type of area? I would think he's not a Trump supporter. He doesn't. No.
No. My dad is a Democrat. He does not like Trump. He The line between what Republicans are and what MAGA
Yeah.
is two different sides of the coin.
Yeah.
It's completely gone past the point of moral and decent and okay. Um, so my dad was politically targeted in June of 2026. He was arrested on heinous charges, all stemming from him having an anti Trump sign in his front yard on his private property. It's a 3-acre lot. Um, it's not in the neighborhood, there's no HOA, it's unincorporated county. And in February, he placed a sign in the yard that said, "Not my president."
Good for him.
Give it a few weeks, and the harassment had just gotten worse and worse and worse from the neighbors and the community. There was glass across the driveway, there was trash in the yard. There were several attempts to rip down the sign, people putting chains around it and driving off in their pickup truck trying to pull it down, defacing the sign, spray painting. People were coming onto our property and trespassing, making threats, and it even went as far as my parents being doxxed. They shared pictures and videos of their home along with the full address and their information on social media. And I had reported a lot of this not only to the local PD but the county. And they came out, and each time it was, "Mr. Clark, you need to take down that sign." My dad said, "That is my First Amendment right. This is my private property. If you want the sign down so bad, you need to come back with a court order." Well, I would say maybe 2 months in, Helena PD, and we don't live in Helena, we live in Bessemer.
Okay.
But Helena PD came out and said, "We can no longer respond to you. You're actually not in our jurisdiction. You have to call Shelby County." We had spoken to the county multiple times. They had called me many times. And I said, "Is what my dad is doing, is that illegal?" "Well, technically, no, but he's causing a lot of problems. We're tired of getting phone calls. He's pissing off a lot of people. You have to make him take that sign down." I said, "He's a grown man. Like, I can talk to him all day long, but that's his land that he worked hard for. I can't make him take it down."
Not to mention, I mean, just because someone's feelings are hurt doesn't make it illegal or bad.
If you don't like it, don't look.
Yeah, I mean,
We were
look
taught
across
it
the
may
street.
be, look away, close your eyes, flick us off and drive by if that's what suits you. It could be a pro Trump sign. It could be a you know, giant cross. It could be a rainbow flag. It could be a "I love peanut
Yeah,
butter"
you just go
sign
about
writ
your
large.
business if you don't agree with it.
That is your yard, and you pay the mortgage, and I don't care. I
Yeah,
can
what
keep
happened to,
driving.
like, our first like, MAGA, I think they at one point, it was, like, our First Amendment right, our, right to bear arms, our right as America, like, they were so, and now I just feel like they're like, it's only that when it applies to us. For you guys, no rights for you."
Yeah, rights for me, not for thee.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, they care when it applies to them, and it to me, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. Right is right, wrong is wrong. My First Amendments are just as important as someone who is MAGA, as any Republican or Libertarian or Democrat. You wear your shirt, you have your bumper sticker, you have your yard sign, and I'm gonna look away because it's not my business.
yeah,
People around here weren't thinking like that. They took it to an extreme.
what a shame. And their children are seeing this, and I know we were just talking about that, about the bullying in your area, and your
Yeah.
children experiencing that. Did these parents, I mean, do they think that their children aren't seeing this, and then yet they show up at these anti-bullying PTO meetings and then go home and they're talking about how they're throwing glass in the neighbor's yard because they don't agree with the sign in his yard. Do their children not see that? No, their children think it's okay because their parents are doing it.
That's exactly what it is. Hate is not something that comes natural to children.
Yes,
They love,
yes,
just it comes natural to them. Hate is a taught behavior. It is something
absolutely.
they seen monkey see, monkey do. They're gonna do what they've seen. And even my child has been experiencing bullying because of the situation, because of the sign. They heard their parents saying certain terms, and those terms are getting carried to school and said to my child.
What a shame.
And, I've tried the whole just kind of ignore it thing, but it's gotten to the point where something has to happen. Hate is taught, and they are putting us against each other right now because nobody can get down to the brass tacks of something is very, very wrong right now in our country.
Yeah,
And we
and that's
all
why
know
I made this podcast because
we all know what it is, and some people are looking it away, and
yep.
it's
And that's
not
what
right.
we have to keep calling it out and pulling these people's head out of the sand. And I don't care if it's making people uncomfortable. It's time to be like in their face with this stuff. And that's why I created this podcast because it is going down to their children and we're never going to get our country in a good spot as far as our people loving each other and having a leadership that loves our people and having a country that's actually functional and safe if we continue to have these same people say this same old hateful rhetoric to their children and their children. Like that's why I want to reach. I know red districts, they say, well, they're not going to listen anyway. Well, it makes me feel better to do this and say it and hope that maybe, we'll turn a couple more little red dots blue someday.
I would much rather at this point in my life, I just turned 40, be able to tell my kids, "I fought.
Yeah.
I fought for you guys' future, and I fought for your children's future." And I would rather have a loud mouth and a clear conscience when I lay my head on that pillow at night,
Yes,
because being
ma'am.
silent right now is not an option. Being quiet and being stepped on and being silenced, it's not an option anymore. We're past that point.
Our children
I'd
are just
rather
gonna
piss them
suffer.
off.
Yeah, I agree. Our children, like one of our, even our children that we're raising right, are going to school. Like I know with my children, they go to school and a lot of their friends are Republican just by their parents and repeat what their parents say. And, they'll come home and they'll say, Mom, you should hear the stuff that these people say about other human beings. And it's just like, it's so disheartening that even my kids at this age are already having to say, hey, that's not right. This isn't cool. You shouldn't be talking like that. You shouldn't think like that. Like, but it's got to be done. We need all hands on deck now, even our children, to stand up and say, like, knock it off. This isn't right.
Yeah, human beings. You said
Yeah.
the key word right there. They are people just like you and I. They bleed red just like you and I. And the fact that adults are teaching children that because someone has a difference than you, that they are subhuman, is not okay at all whatsoever. So I appreciate you asking me on here. We are going to do our part because this is not okay and things have got to change. It is important. It is crucial.
Yes, ma'am. I love it. Oh, I'd give you a hug if I was there right now. So let's circle back into your dad. Now, eventually it became a legal issue, right? They ended up actually arresting him for this?
Yes. So I received a call on June 18th, I believe, of 2025, saying that they thought that my dad was having some mental issues and they thought he was mentally ill and that they were going to pick him up. And I said, my dad is one of the sanest guys I know. Like, I don't know who you're calling about, but I know you're not talking about my dad. And they said, due to the length that he's willing to go to keep that sign up, we feel as though he is mentally insane and needs some treatment. They
Oh,
sure enough, they said, well, we're going to try to get him away from the house. By the time that I was already headed over here because of the phone call to talk to my parents, my dad was here working out in the yard, putting flowers and stuff around the sign. And my mom was headed home. And my mom called me and she said, they got him. They got dad. They have him in the yard right now.
oh my God.
My dad was working out in the yard and they came here to pick him up, and he was bent over and he said that he heard, put your hands up and get down on your knees. And when he looked up, there was like 6 cops that were armed with their guns draw pointed at him.
Oh my God.
They were extremely abusive towards him. They really, really banged him up. They picked him up here. They took him to Shelby Hospital, which is in Alabaster. They put him, uh, they admitted him, put him in there for a week. We went to court as soon as he got there. I was in the courtroom and they said, okay, we're going to keep you for a week, check you over and everything like that, evaluate you. Well, after 1 week, the mental health judge of Shelby County, Alabama said that my dad was not a danger to himself or anyone else and that he was to be released to my care. Shelby County Sheriff's Office went against their own judge's judgment, went to the hospital. The hospital would not tell the sheriff's office what time he was being released or out of what door, so they were posted up at all the doors. They arrested my dad at the hospital on hospital grounds. It was his birthday, June 26th of 2025.
Oh my God.
They took him to the Shelby County Sheriff's Office and they incarcerated him where he stayed for 6.5 months.
For a sign
They
in his yard.
for a sign in his yard. And the charges, now get this. They got my dad for 3 felonies and 3 misdemeanors. They charged my dad with bacteriological or biological weapon of mass destruction and 2 counts of manufacturing, transport, or distribution of an explosive. They also charged him with 2 counts of harassment and reckless endangerment. Now, none of those things have anything to do with the sign because there was no legality of arresting him for a sign. The charges they gave him are such heinous charges. My dad had 2 fireworks on his property. They were buy one, get one free. And this was right before 4th of July, a week before. They were 2 cakes. They're called TNT Dr. Booms, just like what we all shoot on 4th of July and New Year's.
Yeah.
One was in the vehicle still, and one was sitting in the yard where he had unloaded it. That's what they charged my dad with, as a bacteriological or biological weapon of mass destruction, which is crazy because they did not evacuate a single house around us
Yeah. What a
or the
danger.
neighborhood across the street that had hundreds of houses in it.
Unreal.
So, they got him for harassment, for calling the police station because there was a night right before he was arrested that he saw bright lights being shined throughout the yard and the house, and they were parked in front of the home. The speed limit's 45, and we live in a curve on a main road. So my dad walked outside and shined a laser pointer at the vehicle, not knowing exactly who it was, and it was the police. And once they turned on their lights and he knew who it was, he called the police station and said, "You need to leave my home. I'm not in your jurisdiction." That was 2 counts of harassment.
Wow.
So, there were several statements that were put out that what they found was deemed safe, that it was not harmful, that they asked for a high bond on purpose. His bond was $403,000 cash only. You could not use surety, you can't use your home, you can't use a bail bondsman. They wanted $403,000 in cash to let my dad out.
This is insane. And then, I'll be honest, the first time we talked about this, I think I told you, I looked it up as I was talking to you because I could not believe that's this could happen to someone, and not to bring in the race card, but to a white, 60-some-year-old man also. Like, you just want in. So this is just so unbelievable, but go ahead.
I mean, there's rapists and murderers and drug lords that do not have a bond of $403,000, much
Yeah.
less cash only. And you're right. If they would do this to a 66-year-old white man, what are they doing to other races in those jails that you are not hearing about at all whatsoever?
Yeah. Scary. That's scary.
Unspeakable things, I bet. And from what I've heard from dad, it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it took me 6.5 months to get my dad out of jail. And that was with me having lawyers and fighting tooth and nail. And I ended up having to take it to social media because even the lawyers told me it's in Shelby County and Shelby County gets what Shelby County wants.
Yeah.
And there's no hope of getting him out. The investigator alone told me that each charge carried 20 years to life and that he was going to die in there and there was nothing I could do about it.
Oh my God.
So, with the help of the public and social media, because for the longest time I didn't make videos because I'm not really a video person and I don't feel like I'm very strong at talking. But my husband looked at me and he said, "What do you have to lose? Like, nobody's listening now. I mean, anyone's better than nobody."
Yep.
I started making videos and sharing them on social media. And on Facebook, I wasn't getting very much traction because of the demographic of it.
Yeah.
But on TikTok, I got a lot of followers very quickly and people were listening and everyone was willing to help, especially once I started sharing, that it really was just fireworks and that there wasn't anything bad and that no one got hurt and my dad wasn't trying to hurt anybody at all. He felt scared and threatened and he wanted to make sure that his family was protected. And I notified law enforcement so many times and my parents should have been protected and something should have been done about it. the
Yeah.
the people who were stalking them and harassing them and trespassing on their land, they should have been prosecuted and something happened. uh you
Absolutely.
know People should have been told, leave these people alone, it's their property, if you don't like it, don't look.
Yep.
My dad was done wrong and he was politically targeted, and that's not what's supposed to happen when people talk their truth and share their opinion.
Yeah.
The First Amendment is there to protect us, and that's not exactly what happened. And also, Alabama has a stand your ground law and the castle doctrine. Your house is your castle, your car is your castle. If you
Yeah.
feel though if someone is there with ill will and going to put you in danger, you're allowed to defend yourself. And it kind of goes to say that if my dad had just shot a trespasser on his land,
It
he
would have
would
been
have
more
been protected.
acceptable.
Yes, absolutely. He would have been, perfectly fine and it would have been accepted. Where here, he has several gates around the sign and no trespassing signs and no soliciting signs and camera in use signs. Yet people were allowed to trespass on his private property, damage his property, and threaten his family and scare him, and nothing was done about it, all because of what side of the fence he's on.
And now you said
And that
too,
goes to
while
show you
he was
how deep it's gotten.
and you said while he was in there, he had some health problems?
Yes, I believe he had a stroke. Half of his face was drooping. His speech was slurred. He lost an egregious amount of weight. My dad's normally about 220 pounds, and he got down into the 150s. Um, there's no oversight over Alabama prisons and Alabama county jails. County jails, the oversight falls to the uh the sheriff.
And that doesn't say much.
It doesn't say much at all whatsoever,
Yeah.
especially for the sheriff here in Shelby County. And even when it comes to Alabama prisons, the ADOC has not been checking their prisons. There has been so many deaths in the prisons here. Um, don't quote me on it, but I believe it's about one a day. And like the Alabama Solution is a show that just came out, a documentary about Alabama prisons and how bad the conditions are. Nobody's checking here. So what my dad went through in there was times where I would call and I always use my manners. This is Katherine Shelton. I'm calling to check on my dad. Well, we can't share any information. Well, can you tell me that he's alive? He isn't looking well, because we would get video visits. And, I'd see the way that he looked so gaunt and so frail and his color looked bad and he looked like he was just wasting away in there. There was times where they told him they were tired of hearing from his daughter and they took his clothes and stripped him and, didn't give him food. There was times where he was only put on, just insurers, but it was only dad. They told me he was on an insured diet along with food and stuff, and dad said he only had a few insures while he was in there, but there was days where they wouldn't feed him. Half the stay, he did not have a bed or a cot. He slept on the concrete floor. I mean, this is an old man. This
Yeah.
is this is a man in his 60s. I'm 40. I can sit outside for 2 hours in the driveway with my kids and I can't move for the rest of the day and I hear myself, clicking and clacking when I stand up. I
Same.
can't imagine sleeping in those conditions. And
No. And so
now that he's out,
I was
he's
gonna
just
ask,
in a
so he's out
way.
now, how's he doing?
When he first got home, he actually fell in court the day that he was released, and busted his head open, and they didn't offer any medical assistance at all.
Mm.
So when they let him out that night, I took him straight to the emergency room, to get patched up. He was so frail and so little when he got out. I mean, he could barely walk. Um, he's been home since January 5th of this year. So we've had what, exactly 4 months.
Mhm.
And he's been eating so well. He's hungry all the time.
Right.
We've made tons of Mexican food, guacamole on everything. And he's gained about 32 pounds.
Nice. I love it.
Um he's gained a little bit of weight. And man, he can sleep all day. I mean, like you kind of have to go in there with coffee to get him up because
Yeah.
once he finally does fall asleep, he didn't sleep well at all for the first 6 or 7 weeks. He couldn't sleep, had really bad nightmares. He would sit up all night.
Yeah.
I think that he had been in a situation where he kind of had to stay on alert and on guard to protect himself.
Yep.
And
And that's exhausting mentally and physically. So his body is now saying, I need to catch up. I need that rest.
yeah,
Mhm.
constantly wanting to grab a nap. But he's gained weight. He's getting a little stronger. Things that did happen to him while he was in there, I know there's some that he's still not talking about. Every once in a while, he'll say something that I haven't heard yet. Things that I can say is his stay in jail made it to where my dad can't close his hands anymore. And this is a man who has painted some of the most beautiful things as a faux painter that you've ever seen with your eyes. They took away his livelihood. He'll never be able to work to take care of his family again. He'll never be able to provide for himself or my mother again. We have to assist him in getting dressed and doing small chores around the household and in and out of the shower and things like that. He's never going to climb a ladder. He's never going to paint a house. He'll never be able to be on his own and be independent. They stole the last, 10 years of his career and livelihood. A lot of like nerve damage from laying. He was in his cell 24 hours a day, and he laid about 23 and a half hours out of the day. They have a bad overcrowding issue there. So cells that were meant for 1 to 2, there was constantly 4 to 5 in,
Oh my God.
and there was nowhere to go. So there's no outdoor activity if you're in the medical ward. You're not in general population. So there's nowhere that you get to go unless there's an appointment or something that you have to go to. So basically, it's just in the cell all the time. There's nowhere to stand or nothing to do.
Well,
Um,
how did he get released? Were you able to finally get through the court system or?
so we filed habeas corpus as soon as he got put in jail. That never came to fruition. There was never a court date for that, even though it
Okay.
was months and months and months and months of waiting. What did happen was after we had went through a few lawyers, there was a lawyer who did work out a plea deal after it had gone, after it had gained traction the way that it did on social media. The DA and the sheriff's office was getting a lot of phone calls and inquiries about my dad's well being and welfare, and they were able to work out a plea deal. He had to agree to a lesser charge. They dropped the big bad charges, and he had to agree to a lesser charge of attempted possession, manufacturing, distribution of an explosive. And they dropped uh, some of the misdemeanors, and he still had to plead guilty to harassment and reckless endangerment.
Oh my God.
He is on 5 years of supervised probation. So he lost his gun rights. He lost his right to vote. Um, He's on probation. They also made it to where anyone at the address, they said on site, nobody can have a firearm in the home or anything like that.
Did they make them
Um,
take the sign down?
so the sign actually got painted white right after my dad was arrested. I couldn't get it out of the ground because there's rebar in the legs of it and it's concreted in, but I did paint over it. So it's been a white sign since I would say August, probably August or September. So it's a plain white sign in the yard. There's nothing on it. And you would have thought that when I painted it white that the harassment would have stopped, but there's a certain individual, there's been a few, but there's one in particular, we don't know him. He lives in the neighborhood kind of across the street. And I've got video of him coming by saying that I better take down that sign if I know what's good for me. And he keeps telling people that it will bring down their property values and that I need to take it down. I
Unreal.
think I've decided that another sign needs to go up because I have a First Amendment right and I
Yeah.
have the right to speak and I have a voice. And if they don't like it, they can look away.
That's right. And that's what they need to learn. If you don't like it, look away. You're not being physically harmed by someone, posting their opinion. You're not being physically harmed because someone wants to dress like a drag queen. You're not being physically harmed because there's a trans athlete. I mean, they just don't get it. Like if you just went about your life and respected other people, as long as you're not physically being harmed, like, our lives would be so much better. Everyone would be so much
Yeah,
happier, and and yet they just keep trying to control every aspect. So put another sign up, and if there's something that we can tell my listeners and followers, do you still have a GoFundMe? What can we do to help?
we do still have a GoFundMe. I've been using those funds not only for, legal issues, but also to be able to take care of my parents, their medical needs, accommodations, getting my dad in and out of the vehicle, things for, him to be able to get around the house easier. We do still have a GoFundMe. Every penny is appreciated since he's unable to work. So that is appreciated.
And
Go
I'll post a link with the video so that everyone sees that.
go vote.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to vote. It's so important. People think, "Oh, my voice doesn't matter." I mean, it doesn't matter what we say or do anyways. I encourage everyone, if you want to support my dad, if you want to support the Democratic Party, if you are just anti MAGA and want to see a change, if you care about your future, your children's future, the economy, the fuel prices, no matter what it is, everyone needs to get out and vote.
Yeah.
However, they choose to vote, it's so important that bodies are in the seats and
Yeah.
filling out ballots. Um,
Yes,
Go
yes,
and
yes.
speak your mind and say the thing and talk up and wear the shirt. Um,
Yeah.
it's better to be loud than silent right now. It's so very important. If people's voices didn't matter, they wouldn't want to silence you.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo. Exactly. And that's what I talk about all the time on my page. That's why they use the us versus them strategy. They get one group of people looking at another group and hating them and saying, "You're the reason my life sucks," when really your life sucks because you keep putting in politicians who don't care about you. So I always say, not only do you have to care, but you have to be aware. You can't be
Yes.
willfully ignorant. We have to look outside of our party and see, are they telling us the truth? What is their background? Are they really going to make those changes? So I think, care, be aware, and share. And that might sound a little, lame, but I think if everybody could get that mentality down and get informed and, like you said, vote, our country would be so much better off.
I agree. I think a lot of people don't know and don't understand, so they just don't vote, thinking that
Yeah,
it won't affect anything
yeah,
because they won't. If you don't want to have to open up a book and take time, flip through a few videos. If
yep,
TikTok and 3-minute videos is your thing, what is a Democrat? What is a Republican?
yeah,
Why should I vote? Look up these simple things. A lot of us have ADHD or squirrel brain like me,
yeah,
and maybe quick videos is how you learn the best.
yep,
Look it up, get some knowledge. That way
yeah.
you can get in the conversation, get your foot in the door on why does it matter so much? Because
And
I
that's why
promise
I
you it does.
created my page in general, like the digital media company. Even though I'm liberal based, but it's not just for my own self, like I'm doing something and to show my children I'm doing something, but because I hope that, like I said before, we could reach people that don't just agree with everything we say, and maybe they'll see something that's just quick on there. But everything I post is always truthful, informative. I make sure to do my research. So, like you said, even if it's just quick little tidbits, they have to care, they have to be able to absorb it, and they have to want to share it. Sharing is getting involved. They don't have to
I
go to
agree.
they don't have to go to protests, they don't have to, but sharing is caring. As lame as
I
that
agree.
sounds.
I get a lot of messages because a lot of people who are actually like really right leaning, I keep on my social media, especially my Facebook page, and I
Oh,
will
they
get
see that.
messages constantly like, why don't you delete them? Like, why do you even want them on your page? For a few different reasons. Number one, they have to see my stuff that I post. And if they disagree with what I post, they're going to chime in.
Yep,
And if anything, it's going to people who think like I do, is going to solidify in them why they don't agree
yes,
with MAGA. And it's going to make MAGA second question. And they may just go to Google to do a quick search, but they still looked it up and they still have more information than they had in the beginning.
yes,
But if anything, it's going to show my friends of, ew, I don't want to be like that and I don't want to think like that.
yes,
And it's gonna solidify how they feel. So and I honestly wanna learn. So if someone has an opinion,
yes,
tell me because I'll look it up, I'll read about it. I wanna know. I don't wanna be closed off to I don't wanna go around with blinders, and not know what's out there. I'd rather them tell me because I wanna know, I wanna educate myself.
yes. Oh,
So
Catherine, you
everybody
are, we could need to scream that from the rooftops, girlfriend.
yeah. Educate yourself, please.
Educate, yes. Oh
So,
my God. Well, thank you so much for coming on and telling your
thank you
story.
so much.
This is amazing. I'm gonna share the heck out of it, and hopefully we can get it out there and just, open people's eyes to all the things we talked about today, not just what happened with your dad. It all kind of ties in, with just the rhetoric and the way people think and how they respect their fellow Americans, what they're teaching their children. So, I love it so much. Thank you so much for coming on.
So much for inviting me. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.